Hi, I'm Miguel, and I'm here with David Russell, Grammy winner, internationally known classical guitarist, and I'm here to do an interview with him.
Nice to be here.
Nice to meet you. I want to talk to you about tone production.
Okay.
All right. In 2005 on La Voz de Galicia, there's a quote from you saying, "Siempre quise tocar como Andrés Segovia," which is, I always wanted to play like Andrés Segovia. And you developed your own tone, which you're very famous for, and the two sentences you hear most in guitar departments of music schools throughout the US is, David Russell has the most amazing tone, and the second one is, I wish I had the tone like David Russell. What advice do you have for students to learn how to find their own tone?
Well, I'll go by parts.
Okay.
Can we talk about the Segovia thing first?
Yes.
It might be a quote which is a little bit in isolation because I grew up listening to recordings of Segovia, and that was really what attracted me to the guitar as an instrument and the music that he played, and also the charisma that he had in his music. So it's not that I want to play in exactly the same way as he did musically. Of course, we all end up finding our own voice musically, but it was really his playing that inspired me at the beginning. So that's really the reason why that quote is there.
Okay.
Then coming down to what you're asking about, like the tone production itself and how does one find your own tone or something, I would say often the tone itself is less important than the balance you produce. So when you play a chord, how loud is each note in that chord? Or if you have a melody with some accompanying notes, the person that's able to distinguish the melody from the accompanying notes in a good way will probably sound like they have a better tone, unless they have simply an awful bad tone. But as long as they have a pure enough tone, that is the impression you have. But it's not only the tone, it's all the other things that go together with it, the balance. I think balance is vital to be able to bring out the musical intention that the composer wants or you want with a phrase. So I would say we should all find our own balance in terms of which note is louder than the other across the guitar. Also on the guitar, we have to cross strings, and so sometimes from the third string to the first string, it's only 1/5 the way. I mean, that's not even 20 centimeters on the piano, and yet we've gone across two strings and each string with its own tone. So our work to be able to balance that string crossing so that you don't notice, the listener, that is partly tone production, tone use, etc. And so I would say balancing your guitar is also an ability which you must listen to and hear, so that the first string doesn't sound shrill in comparison to the third string, and make it, if not the most beautiful sound, but at least the most attractive. If the melody goes up and it finishes on this really important note, and it happens to be on the first string, it's got to be just as beautiful as on any other string. Nowadays, I think both the strings and the guitar that are built, the guitar making, have improved so much in comparison to Segovia's day. So we don't need always to move up the string. If you look at Segovia's fingering, very often he'll go to the rum and go away up the second string instead of doing it in third position or something, because his first string didn't have the same tone quality. Now we don't have to do that so much.
Yeah, you just reminded me of, I think it's number 5, source study number, the Segovia number. No, not 5. I think it's number 7, the D major one. The D major, he does go up for the A on the second string.
Yes, that's right. It's very typical.
Yeah.
I mean, people still do that. I sometimes do it to be able to get a certain kind of vibrato and things, which, strangely enough, Segovia was famous for his very good tone. But I think he was very good at bringing out the most important magical note of a phrase. So it's not note for note, every note is a good tone. He can make that special note have the extra magic with his good vibrato. He had a fabulous vibrato, and of course his good tone production, which makes the important note in the phrase really glow.
Wow. Well, thank you for that. Dammann guitars. That's another part that it's an integral part of your playing, and you've been playing Dammann guitar since, I'm guessing, like the early 90s.
Yeah, late 90s.
Late 90s, okay.
Yes. Manuel started playing the Dammanns a little before I did. So.
Actually, that's leading to my next question. My next question is that Manuel Barroco, he was the first international classical concert artist to perform on a Dammann guitar. Did he influence you in any way to actually start playing them, or was that just coincidental that you both started?
Sort of coincidental. You know, I played for many years on a guitar made by John Gilbert. John, who's passed away now, John was from San Francisco, and his guitars were very bright, and so you had to spend a lot of time darkening them and mellowing the sound. You know, it's a little bit. It was I won't say a struggle. It was an exciting kind of guitar to play, but sometimes maybe shrill on the difficult end from the player's point of view. And I was looking for a good cedar guitar. I had played on a Ramirez before and so a friend called Alex Dunn, an American guitarist, he showed me his Dammann, which is earlier than Manuel's, and that was the first one I saw that I thought, wow, this guy is making something special. So I got in touch with him, and at that same time Manuel had started playing Dammann. So of course, then I saw what Manuel could do with his. I thought, okay, definitely. But I'd already made the step. And the first Dammann I have, which I kept, was, I should say, more mellow. It has a big volume and everything. So in some ways it was like going for the tone from the opposite angle. The John Gilbert was this really bright guitar which I had to mellow tone down or be careful with. The Dammann was naturally much warmer. So it was almost, when I wanted it to be bright, I had to work at it to push the guitar in the opposite direction. But the Dammann is a much more comfortable ride. You know, just naturally the guitar will help you with your tone and help with, it's got big volume and things like that, and you don't have to push it. You know, it's a bit like, you say that the John Gilbert or some other guitars like that, it's like driving a Ferrari. If you're not careful, it'll jump all over the place. The Dammann's more like a Mercedes, and it gives you a comfortable ride most of the time.
How has it affected your performance and your artistry?
Well, it must have affected me because, you know, when you play an instrument, you adapt your interpretation for the good parts of that the instrument has, the good qualities. Although I think most of the time there comes a point where the guitarist can't change so much, you know, so it's almost like, this is how I play. You put the guitar in there, if it doesn't sound good, I'm not going to make it sound good. Put another one in, this one sounds good, this is one for me. You know, it's because I think maybe when you're 22 or 25, perhaps you can really adjust much more to the instrument. As you get older, you want to find the instrument that brings out your qualities. But still, I've had many Dammanns. I mean, not one a year, but I've had many from him. We've exchanged, and each one has a different character. You know?
Wow.
And so, when you play on a new guitar, whether it's by Matthias Dammann or by someone else, of course you discover new things in the music that you play that maybe on the other guitar weren't coming out, and then you can bring them out on a new guitar. It's fun. I love it. I usually get a new guitar, not necessarily by Matthias, but almost every year. You know, I like to do that. It's a lot of fun.
Wow. Can you let us know some of the other guitars that you play?
Yeah.
Or that?
Well, excuse me. I got one recently from Dennis Toltz, who's a young German maker. We met, my wife and I met Dennis more to do with running marathons, because he's from Berlin and we were running the Berlin Marathon. So we made friends that way, and his guitar making just got better and better and better. And the last couple of years he's really up there, and so I bought one from him. I love it. I also have one by Michael O'Leary, who's a guitar maker from Dublin, from Ireland. and
Berta Rojas.
Berta plays exactly.
She
Berta
plays
plays that, and I met him. I think maybe through Berta, perhaps, and I have his guitar and it's very nice. You know, and I have some more at home. I have 3 John Gilberts, which I love them because I liked him so much. But I probably won't play a concert with them anymore. And then there's some other guitars at home, but those are probably apart from my Dammann's, Dennis's guitar and Michael O'Leary's are the 2 that I think are best.
Wow. Well, your John Gilbert guitar, you use that on, in my opinion, and a lot of like Dr. Amos and Dr. Brad DeRoche. You're familiar
Yes.
with Dr. Brad DeRoche? Like, we have this concept that is like the most monumental record because you accomplished something that nobody else has done of recording so many works by Tárrega, and also like everything like came together perfectly. The guitar, the John Gilbert guitar, is amazing. Your elegant lyrical playing, the tone, and the production of the album.
I'm very happy with that. At that time, I couldn't find any more Tárrega. You know, since then, a whole lot of his pieces that are not on the double CD have been discovered, if you like. And you know, and in fact, someone said recently that they have a score of yet another new piece that didn't exist before. So there must be some more in some people's attics. Things. But at that time, that was everything I could find, and I wasn't playing on the Gilbert at that time. But I used an old Gilbert guitar from 1980 or so, which I still have, because it's a certain kind of sensibility that the spruce top can do that often the cedar tops are not so good at doing. Mm-hmm. You know, cedar tops will make this big juicy sound, but sometimes not such a refined sound, which is fine for a concert because, I mean, like, here's how, for example, I played amplified because it's a big hall, but for the Tárrega, I felt that I wanted something that had an intimacy in the melody, in the tone, that I was getting much better from the Gilbert guitar.
Wow. Do you have any plans to make another Tárrega CD in the future with the manuscripts that have been found?
No, I might put in a few more, but you know that CD was a big work to do. You know, it's a lot of work to learn. Like, it's about 2 hours of music, and I did it while I was still playing concerts, and you know, in between, and it was hard work. But John Taylor was the engineer. John's still a good friend, and he's wonderful. Since then, I've moved to other companies and everything. So I think other people can do Tárrega. You know, I've done it already.
Question about that. Sorry, I have other questions, but I just started thinking of other ones to ask you. I have the 4-volume set of it's by D'Addario of all the complete works by Tárrega. Mm-hmm. I have a hunch. You worked from that for the album, didn't you?
Well, I got a whole lot from a man called Michael McMeekan, who, let's see, he used to be the producer, I think the owner of Chantarelle, which is a publishing company. Mm-hmm. Since I know he sold it. But he gave me access to a whole lot of first publications, which is where Bourbon got theirs. You see, so I didn't go with someone else's arrangement or someone else. I got access to at least what we could get, first publications, and some things written by hand, you know, the manuscripts, to see it. You know, of course, I have everything else, you know, and see what other people did, but yeah. It's always best to get to the earliest source possible.
Oh, excellent. I started switching questions around here. Going back to, we're still talking about Tárrega. I love that album.
Good.
And I want to talk more about your artistry on Las Dos Hermanitas by Tárrega. Mm-hmm. You play an intro that I haven't been able to find anywhere.
Yes,
It's
okay,
the Chopin Vals Brillante, Opus 34, number 1, in A-flat major. What is the secret to that?
It's a version I found. I didn't find it. Somebody, I think maybe Michael, gave me that, and it's a bit like some of the pieces by Barrios and other composers, where they rewrote the piece again and again. You know, sometimes with an intro, sometimes without, or a different intro.
Yeah.
You know, and historically, I think there are still some things to be discovered about Tárrega and, of course, other composers. In his time, people were not so careful with what they did with the scores and with the compositions. For example, the famous Gran Jota, which I played last night, the intro is by José Viñas, a piece called Recuerdos de Palma. And so it's not completely by Viñas, but Tárrega used Viñas and then put some things in himself. Then but a few of the variations and the theme itself is by Julián Arcas. And then most of the variations by Tárrega. So what would you put? 3 names in the publication? I don't know. Or could you say, well, actually Tárrega only wrote from this variation onwards. The other ones are Julián Arcas. I don't think he was trying to steal the piece. It's just he used other people's music to incorporate them into his piece of music.
So does that mean that for the piece Se Ela Perguntar on Aire Latino by Dilermando Reis,
there's also an intro there that other people often don't have, but that comes from a recording by Dilermando, where he plays some chords before the melody starts.
Amazing.
Mi re fa, it's the beginning of the melody,
Yeah.
but it starts bang on that, right? Mi re fa. The way he did it on an old recording, he plays a few of those chords, so I just took it off the recording.
That's
I just
awesome.
copied it.
So that means that you spend a lot of time trying to get like historically accurate, as well as because getting the oldest score with like handwritten scores.
If you can, yes. To be honest, I'm not a musicologist,
Okay.
so
it sounds like you are.
yeah, it sounds. Maybe I'm trying to make it sound like I'm a musicologist.
No, nothing.
I just feel that if you play a piece of music, the more time you investigate where it came from, or where was the composer when they wrote it, or what sort of influences were around in their lives at that time, I think you can get a little closer to the piece. But I don't want to say that my version is like the last word on what you should do with a piece of music, because I don't approach the music as a musicologist. I approach a piece of music because I love the melody, and then from there, if you're going to make a recording like a CD or something, the more you know about it, the better. It'll help. So, Barrios is a problem because there's still intros and different versions still being discovered. And every year somebody has a new version of the waltz numbers and so and so. Okay, right, why not? Because he made so many versions, and in his recordings there aren't two pieces the same. Because he can do what he wants because he wrote it. When we play it, we should make our own choice. For example, when you play the famous Paraguayan dance by Barrios, there are many versions. So each of us should choose the version that we think is the best, if you like, just like Barrios did. It's Wednesday, Thursday, he plays a semitone. The other time he plays a tone. So what? It doesn't completely change the atmosphere of the piece or anything. Yeah. It's just he's allowed to improvise. We're supposed to do what he did.
Okay.
But in the end, the piece becomes yours, especially if you have more versions to look at.
Well, next question. For the past year or so, you've taken your music on the road on an iPad with a little foot pedal. And
it's actually 2 years now. Yeah.
2 years. Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah. Well, when you travel a lot, you have to carry a whole lot of scores because the pieces that I maybe want to learn next year, but I'm not sure. All the pieces that I'm playing now, whether I have them in my memory or not, I've still got to carry all those scores. I'm making photocopies all the time because you can't carry a book like this big for 3 pages.
Yes.
So all of that done. I don't have to do that anymore. I just scan all the pieces that I think I might want to look at. And for example, when I'm at home, I've got lots of other things that I want to do, so I don't want to, if I'm doing transcribing, I don't want to do that at home. I want to do it when I'm bored in an airport or something. Now with the iPad, I just carry lots and lots of scores with me. It's fantastic, really.
Well, how has that affected your performance on stage? Because you don't have to be flipping or like have like.
Yeah, I think it's much more elegant than having scores. If you're going to play with a score, it's the large iPad, whatever kind of tablet you like. But really, I think it's the best. The other tablets, the programs are not as good as the one that's called For Score. It's a fantastic program for a soloist, maybe for a group, maybe other ones. But the pedal is the page turner. You don't even have to prod your iPad because you just walk out, you kick the pedal, and it just wakes up if you've set it up properly. And then I just make a playlist, so you just go through and I just, when the first piece finishes, the next piece is there, So it makes life much more fun, and a lot of the time that we put into practice, it's purely for memory. As a young player, I think everybody has to really push your memory to the limits, because memory is vital in many ways. To conceive a large piece of music, you can't really do it on the page because there are all these interruptions. A big piece, like say the Chaconne by Bach, in your mind, you can, if you have it well memorized, you can see the shape of the piece better. But there comes a time in your life, perhaps, that memorizing is more difficult, or I don't want to say it because I'm old, but it is different. It was a lot less effort when I was 20. I just memorized pieces immediately. Now there's a lot of effort involved. And if you can sight read well, often there'll be many pieces that you actually are going to play it really well within a week, but you don't have it in memory. So now I can put pieces into the program, I can have a much wider program choice because I use that. Of course, half of them I have by memory anyway, But for modern pieces or contemporary works that are written now, I prefer to use the score, or in this case, use the pad.
That makes sense. Speaking about memory and things like that, you've traveled the world for many years. You're obviously healthy. You run marathons, and you're very relaxed. Your playing is effortless. Like, it looks effortless.
It's a lot of effort. I can tell you, it's a lot of effort.
No, I mean, it's just so relaxed. There's like no tension in your body. There's very few guitar players like that. John Williams is similar to you in that aspect. Pepe Romero as well. He just sits there, and it just looks like you're like in a meditative state and very, very peaceful. And you use the footstool. There's in this day and age, people are focal dystonia. Focal dystonia tends to be a thing that's been affecting a lot of modern younger players, and focal dystonia. They have like pinched nerves, and they're using, they don't use the footrest anymore. They're using the cushion. What do you do to stay physically healthy so that you don't have to do something that looks stupid, like a footrest? No, not a footrest. Sorry, not the
cushion.
The cushion, the little glass thing that there's.
Yeah,
a
that's
video
very
on YouTube.
nice. Yeah, that's a nice one. But there's a video where I make fun of all of that.
Yeah.
Because I made fun. It was a big concert in honor of Eli Kastner. And so he'd heard me play a lot. So instead of that, I did a whole load of gags mixed into the music. Yeah. And I put a video on YouTube or on Facebook. I can't remember. Maybe it's on Facebook.
It's on YouTube.
Okay, it is. And where it's kind of, I just cut up the bits where I'm making fun of different kind of footstools and things.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's a fun thing. But to be honest, I think if I was going to start again, I like the idea of not using a footstool because you are much more square, if you like. And your whole body can be more balanced, not so twisted. But I grew up with a footstool, and the times that I tried playing concerts with either the cushion or, some of the attachments to the guitar, I'm very comfortable at home, but the moment I'm with the pressure of being on stage, I like the feeling of having a guitar between my legs. It gives me a kind of strong feeling, and for vibrato and things like that, I found with the apparatus or whatever you want to call it, I just didn't have the same energy to kind of like dig into the instrument. But I think if I was going to start, it's a very good idea.
But what about the fitness aspect of it? Because you know you've been touring for a long time. Sorry.
Like, no, for example, the violin or the flute. You know, those instruments. You're doing something. You're twisted up. You're holding something where there's a whole lot of things happening. Or the flute where there's a lot of body twist to play, and yet there are flutists who are incredibly relaxed. It doesn't mean that you can't go into a rather odd position and still be relaxed. So I think the thing is to find a balanced position, not too much twist and whatever, and not go too far around. I would say, especially if you look at my shoulders, for example, they're not twisted like that. They're pretty straight. So when I play the guitar, it's fairly balanced. But you know and you mentioned, say, focal dystonia. There are some people who have absolutely perfect body position, they get focal dystonia, and there are other people that are completely twisted up, and they don't. So I don't think one thing goes to the other. I feel that the focal dystonia is more some sort of connection, I think, because I have I'm not going to have it, but you know, there's something that the connection and the orders from the brain to the fingers, something goes wrong. And the order gets kind of short-circuited or something, you know, because I don't think it's to do directly with a position. If you have a twisted, like a pinched nerve or something, I don't think it gives you focal dystonia. It'll give you a pain in the elbow, or it'll give you something else will go wrong. I don't think you could call that focal dystonia. So pinched nerves are bad, of course, and all guitarists, we often suffer at the bottom of our back. And I think that comes from not sitting with your back straight, sitting with your back popped out, you know. So sit up. I would say sit up so that your back is basically straight, and then you're very strong like that. Strong in the sense that I don't want to be relaxed because it's going to sound like I'm floppy. I want to be relaxed like a judo guy, you know. It's so that you're in a position that from here I can do anything energetic. That's what I look for. I
think that's what Charles Duncan calls in the art of classical guitar. I think he calls it dynamic repose or something like that.
Sounds great.
Something like
Sounds
that.
good.
Yeah. What advice would you give to people preparing for a master class? Because
well,
preparation.
Be prepared because you don't know how much pressure you're going to feel. You think, oh, it's not a concert, it's just a master class, but you've got the guy sitting about 3 feet from you, staring at your fingers. Say you're the student. I'm this close to you. It's a bit imposing sometimes, and some people get kind of like almost overwhelmed by the feeling of being scrutinized so much, but that's what they go to a masterclass for. You know, I think a solo lesson where you just play for the teacher and there's nobody else is less intimidating. I think masterclasses are difficult, so I would say be prepared. That's all. Really know your piece, so that when the teacher asks you to do things to it, you can deal with it. You know, but still, it happens often. You know, I do lots of masterclasses, and sometimes really good players, they just kind of fall apart. Sometimes not. You know, and my work is usually to help them sound okay. You know, and to help them have a good experience and not some sort of traumatic, unpleasant experience.
Well, thank you for your time.
Okay.
And
Great. Bye bye.